The good old days. Who remembers the good old days? I'm 50 years old. I remember the good old days. People like to reminisce about the days of their teens or their 20s, college days, those kind of things before they found the love of their life and settled in and had kids and whatnot. Or maybe you were chasing some kind of career in the good old days. Like for me, playing in a band and we're going to make it, and you jump in a van and drive 8 to 10 hours somewhere and play for 40 minutes for free. And then you all sleep in the same hotel room, right? 3 to a bed. I've done that many a times. And then you spend all night driving home and then you call that being on tour. Yeah, we were on tour. We drove to Seattle and back in one night. Now, I've been on some legitimate tours, and the longest I've ever been gone on the road on tour was for 7 months. Yes, I was not home in my own bed for 7 months. And the longest I've been gone on tour away from my wife was 3 months. So those would be tours. You know, you're playing 5-6 nights a week, sometimes 7. Those are tours. Going to Portland and then to Seattle and home, that's a weekend of shows. That's not touring. Come on. We all want to sound bigger than we are. Right? So the good old days when we were playing in the band, you know, and we wanted to promote the band, we could buy radio ads. We could buy an ad in the paper, or the Statesman had the Scene magazine that was part of the paper. There was Thrive magazine, and some other, I guess they call them rags. I don't know why they call them rags. If you know why they call them rags, let me know. But just other papers, that entertainment type papers. You could advertise in those. You could beg the radio station to play your song once in a while. That might happen. But there was or the thing that we did a lot in Midline is we would make flyers, paper flyers, and we'd go down to the 6th and Main area, and we'd put a flyer on every car window we could find. And then, then the day of the show, you'd come back and you would find your flyers all over the alley and in the parking lot, and I would call that littering probably, but that's how we advertised for shows. That's how we fought our way to be recognized and to gain some momentum and some traction on band awareness, and brand awareness. And, we wanted to be rock stars. And so we did what it took to be able to make it as a band. So that's part of the good old days, right? Flyering cars like crazy, getting in the van, doing those shows where no sleep for 48 hours and come home and look like you've been drugged down the street and smile about it, right? And then you get up and go to your day job. Well, now with the tools of social media have made making people aware of your band pretty easy, or any business that you have. If you're a realtor and you sell houses, advertising in the phone book, that's a dead thing. The phone book used to be huge and like 4 inches thick. Now it's this little tiny, it's probably smaller than my notebook here. The phone book is not a thing anymore, right? Everything's online. And so if you're a realtor and you're looking to advertise your business, you hit up your friends and family and make them aware that you're a realtor, and you probably have a realtor page, and you talk about being a realtor and houses for sale and property and all of that stuff. And so it goes for musicians. I was made aware that somebody recently was talking about, musicians should be doing this for the art, not for the likes. And I do agree with that to a large degree, because, I play drums and play music because I am in love with it. I fell in love with drumming when I was 10 years old, and I just never stopped. And the more I learned and the better I became, like I had an awareness that I was becoming a better and better drummer. And I'm still trying to become a better drummer. I think I have a certain skill set, but that doesn't mean that I know everything or I'm the best at any of it. I just try to be that team player now and deliver what I know. And as if I can improve myself in areas, I most certainly do try to do that. So again, back to the social media thing, it's like, yeah, I love this and I love sharing my love with all you fine people out there. Some who I know, some who I know very well, some I'm just acquaintances with, or maybe I've never even met you. You know, I've got several people that I've connected with that live over in Europe, and some in Japan, and some in South America, and so on, because music made that connection. And it's so awesome to be part of this global community, if you will, of musicians and people who just love that stuff. And so when I see other people succeeding, even if I don't know them, I'm like, yeah, victory, you know, how great is that? That, oh, I know that person personally, or I have some kind of connection to them, and you see them kind of rise to the top and they're doing something awesome and you just want to cheer them on. And I like it when people like, oh, look, Freddie's, you know, teaching drum lessons and doing this and that, you know, go Fred. I was on Instagram the other day, and this girl who I grew up with in Caldwell, went to school with from kindergarten through graduation. Her name is Tina, and she is in the fashion industry. I don't know what her job is exactly, but it's really cool to watch all of her Instagram stories and posts, and on Facebook too. You know, she's in LA, she's in New York, she's wherever, and just surrounded by this whole fashion industry. And she had made a post of, you know, some of that fashion stuff is kind of like, I don't know, I'll stick to my black t-shirt and jeans, you know. But this person was dressed essentially exactly like Gene Simmons, except they had some kind of weird hair and no makeup. And so I made a comment, I was like, I think Gene Simmons already had this figured out. And so that she and I went back and forth kind of chatting a little bit, like, hey, I see you're doing this. Hey, I see you're doing this. This is really, really cool. And then I kind of wrapped up my conversation with her saying, well, here's two kids from Caldwell making their mark, you know? And, you know, when we were graduating, Caldwell was still a pretty small town, as it still is. I think it's a little bit bigger, but, you know, by and large, a farming community. And she said, yeah, the small town couldn't hold us back, or something like that. But it was just kind of a cool pat each other on the back moment. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to social media and the way that we do business is completely different than the good old days, right? I mean, if you're a painter and you're painting landscapes, or, you know, if you're the Bob Ross of painters, of course you love doing that, and you love putting paint on a canvas and creating something. Now, if somebody really appreciates that art and says, hey, I want to pay you for that art, I love your art, can I buy your art? And they say, yeah, okay. So now you've exchanged some money and you have this amazing painting on your wall. Well, then that artist thinks, I could maybe make a living painting pictures. Maybe that wasn't their initial reason for creating art, but now that they can make art their living, and that is a huge important thing, I believe. And so I want to make my art, which is music, my living, which I am doing. It doesn't mean that it diminishes my love for the art, because I get financially compensated for that, right? Now, as much as I've praised social media, to me they're just tools. You know, Facebook's a tool, Instagram's a tool, YouTube has been an awesome, huge tool for me for advancing my drumming career. But social media can also be this dark, depressing garbage heap of stuff, and we've all seen that. And when people post stuff just to stir the pot, just to make waves with people, you know, just to get under each other's skin, you know, a lot of that is politics driven, of course. But some people just get annoyed that, you know, some people post, I had to stop at every red light today. Well, lucky you. I have not been immune to experiencing red lights at every stop. And then other people say, well, you only post the good stuff. Well, probably. Why do we want to post the bad stuff, you know? So, yeah, my life reflected in social media is pretty much always going to be the good stuff, you know, the positive stuff, because we could definitely use more positive stuff in what's going on. So, have a fantastic day. Drum covers are back. As you saw last Thursday, I did High Fish from the band Rammstein. If you don't know what high fish is, it's German for shark, apparently. And that song's about sharks crying and their salty tears are in the salty water and nobody notices that they're upset. So you can... It is on YouTube, but for some odd reason, it does not appear on my page. But people are finding it, watching it, and commenting on it. And I don't know how, because I can't seem to unlock the mystery of where this video went. However, it is on my Facebook page and pretty easy to find from last Thursday. So Coffee with Fred is now moved to Tuesdays so that on Thursdays we could focus more on the drum cover.